Hey everyone, Israel Duran here, bringing to you another Impact interview. And the guest I have with me today, you're going to love. I can't wait to go through this interview because this man has been on the highest films in Hollywood and also independently. And you're going to walk away with some incredible tools today. So the guest I have with me today, he's been on films like God's Not Dead. He's been in the Left Behind series, films like What If? And he also played Hercules, the #1 most watched television show of all time throughout the world. The one and only Kevin Sorbo. So Kevin Sorbo here with us. How you doing, Kevin?
Good. How you doing? Good to be here.
I'm happy to have you. We're going to be having a conversation here on a couple things. And I want to dive right into it because Kevin has been in a lot of films. You've been in several films, a couple of my favorites, God's Not Dead.
I've been in over 90 films. Not all of them are good, but most of them are. There's a dozen I wish I didn't do, but these things happen sometimes.
Of course. 90 films. Wow.
Yeah.
And God's Not Dead was one of my favorite ones. And
Thank you.
even What
If is one of my favorite ones as well. Same writers that did God's Not Dead, but been very lucky to be part of some wonderful films and also doing more and more directing now too.
Yeah, and I'm curious, what inspired you to get into acting?
Well, I'm going to go back a long way. I was 11 years old. I grew up in a little town called Mound, Minnesota. It was on the western shore of Lake Minnetonka. We were home to Tonka Toys. So there's a little trivia question for people right there. Where did Tonka Toys start? For people old enough to remember Tonka Toys. And we went into the Guthrie Theater in 5th grade. The Guthrie Theater is a very famous theater in Minneapolis. A lot of plays start there before moving to Broadway. Lion King probably being the most successful of all of them. And it was Shakespeare, and it was The Merchant of Venice. Now remember, I was 11. I don't know what the heck they were saying on stage, but I was mesmerized because it was Shakespeare. So, but I knew on the way home. I told my mom, she was one of the chaperones on the bus. I was sitting next to her. I said, "Mom, I think I'm going to be an actor." She gave me that nice little mom pat on the thigh. She says, "That's nice, dear." And I'm sure she told my dad, "It's just a phase. It's just a phase." But I knew what I wanted to do at a young age, and I kept it sort of quiet because I was a jock. We made fun of people in the drama class. There was a bunch of wussies. In reality, I wanted to be in there. You fall in those cliques as a kid. So it wasn't really until I got into college where I really started pursuing it. I had a double business major in college, but I had a minor in drama. And I did a lot of commercial work. A lot of people don't realize Minneapolis is #3 in the commercial market in America. Wow. They're home. Well, they got national headquarters: Best Buy, Target, 3M, Honeywell, Pillsbury, General Mills. So I shot a dozen commercials during my college years. So I had that all-important SAG card, that Screen Actors Guild card that's so hard to get, before shipping off to Hollywood and pursuing my dream.
Where did you ship off to?
Where did I ship off to? I got sidetracked just a little bit. It's always a woman, right? So I was dating a girl that was a big-time model around the world. She dragged me down to Dallas, Texas for a little while. And I went because I had two of my high school buddies playing football at SMU at the time. And then I said, "Okay, I got to go." She goes, "Well, just come and spend one summer in Milan, in Italy." I said, "Okay." So I go over there. I was looking at 3 months in Italy. I ended up spending 3.5 years in Europe, signing with commercial agents in Zurich, Munich, Paris, London. Oh yeah, and but I loved it because it made me grow up. Here I was, in my early 20s, and I finally moved to LA. And after we broke up, my girlfriend and I finally moved to LA to pursue that actor's dream.
And then in LA, talk to us about the journey to land Hercules.
You know what? I was very fortunate because of the commercials. The commercial world for me was awesome, and I never had to work another job. All my other actor buddies, because I didn't know anybody when I first moved out there. But everybody's an actor, so you find out what acting coaches to take. I studied with 3 different coaches over 6 years. And during that time, though, I never had to work another job. One of my buddies was bartenders, waiters, selling cars, whatever. I was doing very well just living in the commercial world and making enough money to cover all my expenses. So I was able to focus on acting because, as a buddy said to me, it's called show business, not show. Yeah. And since I had a marketing and advertising double major, I was my own product. I was marketing and advertising myself, and I treated it like a business, worked very hard on it. 3 amazing coaches. I studied for 2 years with each of them. Did a couple of pilots that I got the lead in, never got them picked up. But when Hercules came along, after 7 auditions and 2,800 other actors reading for that role, I got the role. And one year, it was going to be 1 year in New Zealand, but I knew it was 5 2-hour movies. And the biggest honor for me was working with Anthony Quinn, who played Zeus, my father. For those who don't know Anthony Quinn, the man's been nominated 6 times for Oscars. He's won twice. He's been in movies like Lawrence of Arabia, Zorba the Greek, Guns of Navarone. Great guy, became very good friends up until he passed 8 years later. But I knew halfway through the 3rd movie we were going to make it a series. And my agent called and said, "Universal Studios loves this. You're staying down there." And by season 3, we became the most watched TV show in the world in 176 countries. And I had 7 years on that series, and it was beautiful.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
7 auditions.
7 times they called me back. I got down finally the last 3 guys, and I remember going into there's this black tower right on the 101 there in Studio City that Universal is part of Universal, and we all call it we call it the Black Tower where actors go to die, because it was just so hard to get any gig, and there's so much competition. But I got up there and I just felt confident. I busted a bunch of jokes. There was like 50 people in the crowd, all these different, the women and men, all the suits and power people of Universal. And I knew I nailed the audition, the final audition. And I remember I left. I told him, I said, well, I'm leaving for Vancouver tomorrow. I'm doing a guest spot on Michael Chiklis' show called 𝐒𝐿 at that time. And halfway through the filming, they called me up and said, you got the role.
How did you feel when you got that call?
Oh, I went on the set. I looked at Chiklis. I said, I don't want any crap from you. I'm a half god now. So
wow.
It was just, but it was, I was into it. You know, I mean, initially I thought when they wanted a guy to play Hercules, I was in shape. I was 225 pounds. I was ripped up, but I'm not steroid body build type of guy. And that's why I thought they're going to go with like another Lou Ferrigno. Sorry, Lou, but I know back then you took steroids. but they said no, they want a guy that looks like he's an NFL quarterback or maybe a decathlon guy, you know. So I think that helped in getting the role, because I was in great shape, but not bodybuilder shape, you know. You
mentioned 3 coaches, and that's a distinction I want to highlight.
Sure.
How important is coaching, you think, in someone's career and whatever they want to pursue, whether it's business, professional?
Right. It's always great to work with people that know more than you. I think even as an athlete, I wanted to play against guys who were better than me in basketball, better than me in tennis. That's how you get better. And wow. I learned a lot from those coaches I had. I mean, the last coach I had was Roy London, was amazing. I mean, my class alone, it was myself, Matthew Perry, may he rest in peace. Brad Pitt was in my class, Charlotte Ross. There were some actors that went on to do amazing work through the years. So it's important to have somebody there to help guide you, help you just to pursue whatever fears you have in your life and use those fears as a positive thing instead of a negative one.
100%. And I'm sure the audience is like wondering. So like you were fortunate enough to have those 3 coaches.
Sure.
You were able to land Hercules. You were doing that for how long?
7 years.
7 years, the number 7. That's a unique number. And how do you transition to your next big move? What was the next movie after that? Well,
it's interesting because we were still doing very well in the ratings, and they wanted me to do seasons 8, 9, and 10, Universal. I get a call from Gene Roddenberry's widow, who created Star Trek, and she said, look, I know you're talking about continuing Hercules, but I would like you to play the first captain my husband ever created after Captain Kirk, Captain Dylan Hunt, in a show called Andromeda that he wrote back in 1969. And I'm a huge fan of the original series. If I'm a nerd in any way, that's probably the one why I'd be considered a nerd for that series. So I jumped on that instead. But Universal wasn't upset about it because they also own the Sci-Fi Channel. So I was still within the Universal family. And that show, we had a 5-year run up in Vancouver, Canada. And we were the #1 show and first run syndication in America and ran in 156 countries. Wow. So for me, that was like unbelievable to be. It was 12 straight years of working nonstop as an actor. So it was pretty neat. And then I transitioned into doing mostly independent movies after that.
Yeah, and then I'm sure the audience wants to know. So you were doing Hercules, you did a couple other series. What inspired you to go into the faith-based arena?
You know, it's interesting. It was 2010, and I get a call from Dallas Jenkins, who's doing The Chosen right now. And Dal says, I got this script. I'd love you to take a look at it and get your thoughts. Because we were already friends. His kids were the same age as my kids. And so I read the script, and I said, this is unbelievable. Who's playing Pastor Ben in this movie? He started listing other actors. I said, no, I'm playing that role. He said, dude, I can't afford you. And I said, I don't care what. He goes, we're minimum SAG scale. We're going to pay you the lowest you've been paid in a dozen years. I said, I don't care. I got to play this role. It's called What If. And in my book, What If, actually was the same writers that did God's Not Dead, which I did 2 years later. But What If opened a door for me to do the kind of movies that have a positive impact on people instead of a negative. I love doing movies that have hope, redemption, faith, love, laughter, things that Hollywood used to do, doesn't do anymore. Obviously, we can see what's going on within all these other independent production companies and those major studios. And, as successful as Hercules was or Andromeda was, I get stopped all the time by people, airports, hotel lobbies, whatever, saying, I love What If, Soul Surfer, Let There Be Light. This is what people stop me for now. So I know this is the road for me that I think God wanted me to be on all along. Just took a long time for me to figure it out.
And how does that feel when somebody comes up to you and they say, "Hey, Kev, I watched God's Not Dead, and it touched me, it changed my life. I watched What If." How does that make you feel?
The really first time I realized that we're doing something that had a huge impact on people, God's Not Dead had just come out. It was already doing very well. And I was in Salt Lake City with my family. We were at a ski event, skiing together as a family. We're at the airport ready to go home. This woman walks up to me, very beautiful woman, early 30s, a little 8-year-old daughter, pretty little girl. She said, "Excuse me, are you Kevin Sorbo from the movie God's Not Dead?" And I said, "I am." She says, and she said it, I could tell with her accent, she was somewhere from the Middle East. And she said, "I live in Phoenix, but I'm from Iraq originally. I grew up as a Muslim. I saw your movie God's Not Dead. I became a Christian because of your movie." She starts crying. I start crying. My wife starts crying. We prayed for her. We stood and prayed for her right there in the middle of the airport. And I went, "This is amazing. This is amazing. We're called to harvest as Christians. And I'm not perfect in any way. But I looked at this as like, this is incredible to have that movies do have an effect on people. Walt Disney said back in the 1950s, movies and television will influence our youth."
Wow.
And I know that was, he meant for good or bad. We all know the Wild West right now is the internet. Which is crazy. There's so much evil out there. And so I want to combat that any way I can. And I think it's been amazingly successful for me through Sorbo Studios and my wife, that's our production company, to be able to keep doing movies that we're lucky to get funded, if we get funded at all. But I have a lot of other independent people coming up and giving me roles as well. So I'm very fortunate to keep on working in an industry that I love, even though I don't love a lot of what it stands for.
Of course, and you've been essentially.
I got blacklisted. I got blacklisted. I'm the first, before cancel culture became a term. I'm ground zero in Hollywood, because it was 12 years ago. My manager and agent called me in and said, "The studios don't want to hire for anything anymore." I said, "Why?" I said, "The things you're posting on the internet." "Oh, you mean the truth?" The truth is a problem for people on the internet. So I just went, okay, that's weird, but I've always been conservative, always been a Christian. So you go, "Yeah, but things are changing now, as we all know. The winds were changing." I never, we'd be on a set, I could talk to anybody about anything, and we could debate about something, all getting angry. Now, it's people want to get angry all the time. Yeah. So that was where I said, all right, we'll form Sorbo Studios, and we're doing our own thing, because I'm not going to, I love the industry, I just don't love what they're doing with a lot of it.
How important is it in this time for believers, people that are in business, could be media, family, education, government, to really raise our voice up in this time?
Fear is an amazing weapon. We saw it played in full force during COVID, right? I mean, it's amazing what they did, not only to America, but the world. And it was all fear-based, and it was all about controlling our lives. And I think a lot of people woke up, which is good, to say, wait a minute. Okay, this is bad, but this isn't the way they're making it out to be. And so I think it's important for people not be afraid. They need to speak up. We need people I hope, I don't want to do movies that just say this is only for faith movies. I want people to come to the movies because it's just a good movie. I've had atheists walk up to me and say, "You know what? I don't believe the way you believe, but I saw your movie Let There Be Light, and I thought it was a pretty good movie." To me, that's a win. Yeah. Because the message is in there. It's not pounding you over the head. You better believe in God, or you're going to hell. It's a positive message out there that just shows you. I think a perfect example of a movie like that is Blind Side. You look at that movie, you look at this Texas Christian couple, takes in this young African-American kid, and he comes into their life, comes into their family. And it's not like, if you talk to people that, everybody of all kinds and all races love that movie. And if you look at it, you're going, wait a minute, I'm an atheist. That was just a good sports movie. A Christian says, no, that was a good Christian movie. But the message was still in there no matter what. The message was there. And whether you snuck it in there or whatever, I want people, I don't want to just preach to the choir, is what I'm saying. I want people of all kinds to come out and say, I enjoyed your movie. And so I'm going to keep on doing the things that I'm doing, and Hollywood's going to keep doing what they're doing. So I'm just going to, I got to battle on a smaller budget than they do.
Well, you know what? It's so important what you're sharing, Kevin, because this is the time for people to really stand up and share what they have inside, because the time's short. See, people say, well, we got another 20, 30, 40 years. Well, if you said that 30 years ago, look where we are now.
Look where we are now.
The time is always now. They say the best two times to plant a tree was yesterday and today. Yeah. It's the second best time, right? So I'm super excited about having you coming up to our next Service of Speaking Live. Tell the people why they should be in the room.
A little bit what we just covered, which I think is fantastic. I love the work that you're doing, Israel, by the way. I love what you're doing, the message that you're getting out there. And I think this convention that you are hosting in July, and I'm honored to be part of it, I think it's going to bring in a lot of people that are looking for answers. And hopefully that, you and I and all the other speakers will be able to answer those questions for these people. It's a way for them to find out how to be more positive in life and how to realize. Here's a lesson I learned when I was in college. I spent a couple summers caddying at this private country club in Minneapolis. I grew up loving golf. My dad was a school teacher. 5 kids. We couldn't afford a private membership at a golf course, but I was thrown in that world for 2 summers. I'd caddy for women in the morning, men in the afternoon. 18 holes, double bags. So I'd basically walking 12, 15 miles every single day carrying these golf bags. But I would ask all these men, I say, how did you become successful? And every one of them said, oh, I failed. No, really? Oh, yeah. And by the way, I failed again. And then I failed again for another 5 or 6 years. But they they told me you have to use failure as a positive thing. Rejection is good. You learn from. There's always positive things out of every no, every failure, every unsuccessful moment. Like, you just have to find the good in it instead of the negative in it and give up. Because I think too many people just give up. They just give up, and that's not the way to do it. And we have a lot of people in our country, in our world, that are doing it right now. And they blame God, they don't believe in, they blame in government, they blame everybody but themselves. In reality, they got to look in the mirror and say, okay, it's me, what do I got to do?
Wow.
And so I'm hoping that we influence people in a positive way instead of a negative way, and say, okay, how are you going to find a way to make your life better and make your life stronger? By believing in yourself and not worrying about the negative stuff. That was huge for me moving to Hollywood, because Hollywood is all about rejection. You're too young, too old, too fat, too skinny. You're too something for every job you walk in at. You walk in, you can tell. Nah, I don't want they don't want me. But I told my agent all the time, I don't care. Give me the chance to be rejected. That was my mantra. Let me get in the room.
That's it. And this mindset that we're talking about is so brilliant, because most people, they have what we call a victim mindset.
Yeah.
Where they're already defeated before coming into the room.
Yeah.
They already strike themselves out without even going up to the plate. So it's like, for the people coming to this event, they're not only going to learn how to use their voice, but they're also going to learn how to monetize, how to impact. Going to be hearing from you. We have some other speakers as well. And really sharing the realness of what it takes to actually be successful in whatever area of influence that they're called to serve in. So for you, is acting.
Sure.
For you, is media. For others, it could be business, could be government, could be family, education. Now's the time. So with that being said, Sorbo Studios.
Right.
Talk to us a little bit about that, just so the audience knows what projects you have in the pipeline, what's coming up, what's in your foresight before closing.
Well, I've been blessed to keep on rocking. I mean, I've been very fortunate to through Sorbo Studios. Every time we get funded for a movie, I work in the $3 million budget range.
Yeah.
People go, wow, it's a lot of money. No, it's not.
Bad. No,
Hollywood puts out $300 million movies with a $100 million advertising budget. That's why they keep putting out the next Avatar or Pirates of the Caribbean, because they keep making $2 billion worldwide. But those movies have to make $800 million to break even. I mean, it takes a lot. The risk those guys do. I do the movies in the $3 million range, $4 million range, which you have, if you invest in those movies, you have a much better chance of breaking even or making your money back. So I've been very fortunate that every movie that I've been involved with has not lost money. They've all made their money, every investor we've ever worked with. Sorbo Studios was born out of necessity, because Hollywood basically said, we don't want to work with you anymore, which is just, there's such a childish atmosphere in Hollywood, which is very strange to me. Like, they're like little 7th grade mean girls, So there's so much egos and jealousy and insecurity, and I don't miss that. I mean, I don't even live in California. I live in the free state of Florida, I always tell people. Yeah. But I'm going to keep making these little movies that I do, because they have had a positive impact on people. I love staying busy. I've got 4 new movies coming out this year in 2025 here.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of them?
One is a wonderful little I love true stories. This one's called Another Life. We shot it in North Carolina, and I play the guy that the movie is about. He's the guy that was born legally deaf, but through hearing aids he could hear. And he had an alcoholic father, very abusive father, a mother that wouldn't really back her own son up. She was too intimidated, too afraid. His father found God while he was like in grade school. Did a 180 flip. But it never had an influence on him until he got older. He actually started working as assistant in a mortuary, and he became a mortician. Wow. and he was such a funny guy. The guys that he worked with, and while they're embalming bodies, they said, you should start stand-up comedy. He actually became a stand-up comedian / mortician. Wow. And I got to go do his very first act that he did at this club in North Carolina, where people just basically booed him off the stage, but it didn't deter him. He kept pushing and kept pushing, and became fairly successful at it. And along that way, he did find God. He went through a rough life. He became an alcoholic himself, following his father's footsteps. He became abusive, but married 3 times. But when he got older in his 50s, he found God and did like a 180 turnaround. He's like in his 80s now. He came on the set a number of times. I got to meet him, which was important to me as an actor, to get his perspective and who his story was. And it's called Another Life. I can't tell you when it's coming out. It'll be sometime in the fall. I've got 3 documentaries coming out. One, I spent 3 weeks in Israel during in archaeological digs. We traced the flow of the Ark of the Covenant. So I was Indiana Jones in real life, looking for the Ark. And then I've got another one dealing with the Last Supper called Eating with the Enemy, which is
Eating with the Enemy.
Eating with the Enemy, dealing with the Last Supper. So I hope people jump on board. I've got 2 other movies I'm directing this year, and I'm about to head to India to shoot I'm harkening back to my Hercules days. I'm doing a pirates movie, but it's a lot of fun. And it's called The Straits of 𝐊𝐿𝐼. So I'm looking forward to shooting in India. I've never been there before.
That's awesome. Where can somebody learn more, stay connected with you on all these films and everything else you got coming up?
Everything. Go to Sorbo Studios, sorbostudios.com. Click on news and events at the very top of the homepage, because we got a couple of wonderful things coming up here. One is my Rise Up Con.
We were talking about that.
It's based on Comic-Cons, but it deals with actors that have certainly done secular movies, but they've also been involved in family and faith movies. We're doing a charity golf event for our pro-life organization and an adoption agency. And I've got... what was I going to say? Oh, Sorbo Studios also is my wife's site. We have it's like 3 parts. It's my stuff, her stuff, and our stuff in the middle. Because she's a homeschool advocate. She travels the country. She's got a number of books on homeschooling. And she still acts with me as well. She's a producer in a lot of the stuff we do. She's the brains at Sorbo Studios. I'm more the creative.
Didn't she write Let There Be Light?
She wrote Let There Be Light. Yeah.
Wow.
And she's writing another one right now. And like I said, every time we got funded, it was a God thing for these independent movies, because it's not easy to get funding. And so we've been blessed to have people come in and be part of the Sorbo Studios.
Guys, you heard it from Kevin. Go to sorbostudios.com. Stay connected with him. Be a part of what he's doing. This guy is taking his talents, his gifts to serve humanity, bring hope, perseverance, lessons of faith to bring encouragement. It's what we need. And Kevin, in closing here, tell the audience one last thing that's on your heart. What would you like to leave the audience with?
Don't let fear rule your life. It's so easy to sit back and be part of the sheep crowd. I tell people all the time, I know there are lions out there. I'm here to wake up the lions. The sheep are going to be the sheep, but you as a lion can help these people and lead them in the right direction. One of my favorite poems of Robert Frost, The Road Less Traveled, when he comes upon that fork in the road and he said he took the road less traveled. I believe Jesus was the original person to walk the road less traveled, and I'm here to make that road less traveled into a super highway. I just need people to walk the road with me.
Come on now. Click the link below and register for the Service of Speaking live event coming up here just shortly. Kevin will be there along with some amazing speakers as well. And we're going to bring you a framework that you can use your voice to fill the voids out there with your vision and have the victory of monetization. We'll see you there.